If when you think of the most powerful woman in the Ottoman Empire, you picture silk dresses, tearful scenes, and elegant scheming, then you have fallen for history's greatest illusion. Hurrem Sultan began her life as a concubine and ended it having rewritten the laws of an empire. She never waged war in her own name, yet grand viziers fell on her behalf. Heirs to the throne died, and diplomatic letters crossed continents in her name. She was not merely a wife in the corridors of the harem. She was a diplomat who held the empire in the palm of her hand. An architect of intelligence, and when the moment demanded it, a woman who gave the order. This is the real Hurrem Sultan, the one the dramas never dared to show you. There was a systematic rule in the Ottoman palace. The Sultan's mother, the Valid Sultan, stood at the top of the harem. Not wives, because the concept of wife was deliberately kept weak in Ottoman tradition. It was a way of managing the balance of power within the palace. Hurrem shattered this system entirely. To understand how she did it, we first need to look at who she really was. Her exact birthplace and date remain a matter of debate to this day. Known in Western sources as Roxelana, Hurrem is believed to have come from a Ruthenian family, from the lands of what is now Western Ukraine, or possibly from a Polish Orthodox Christian household. In all likelihood, she was taken in her youth by palace agents operating within the slave raiding system of the era. Due to her education at the palace and her ever-present smile, she was given the name Hurrem, meaning cheerful, joyful. She wrote the rest herself. From the day she first stepped into the harem, what set Hurrem apart from the others was not her beauty. Because in the harem, beauty was not an advantage. It was the baseline requirement for entry. What made her different was her intelligence. She learned Ottoman Turkish at an extraordinary pace. She used palace music, poetry, and ceremonial hierarchy as tools. It is known that she wrote poetry in her own hand. Some of those poems have survived to the present day. This is the work not of an uneducated concubine, but of a woman with a deliberate strategy. For over 200 years, no sultan had married a woman from the harem, because such a woman would gain power. And the Ottoman system could not tolerate that risk. Hurrem broke this rule in 3 steps. The first, she learned the language, Ottoman Turkish, the customs of the court, the tradition of poetry. The second, she made herself visible, but in exactly the right way. She captured Suleiman's attention, and once she had it, she never let go. The third step, and this is truly staggering, Hurrem Sultan made history in a way the Ottoman Empire had never seen. At a time when marrying a concubine was entirely outside convention, Suleiman the Magnificent freed Hurrem Sultan in a grand ceremony and formally married her. This sent a shockwave through Ottoman history. Hurrem had broken the system. A single exception had been created, and that exception became a permanent legal reality. Moreover, Suleiman largely ended his relationships with other concubines after the marriage. By the standards of Ottoman palace tradition, this was deeply unusual. The marriage gave her something tangible, a legal identity within Ottoman law. She shattered the palace's unwritten rule of one son per concubine, and bore the Sultan a succession of children. This caused jealousy and profound bewilderment throughout the palace. Among the public, rumors spread that the Sultan had been bewitched. Hurrem Sultan was not merely a wife, she was the Sultan's most trusted political advisor. While the Sultan was away on campaigns, she regularly reported to him on the situation in Istanbul, on public order, and on developments within the palace. The most closely guarded secrets of the Ottoman Empire were, in truth, stored within the walls of Topkapi Palace. The harem was invisible from the outside, but from within it watched over the entire palace. Hurrem used this structure in a remarkable way. Mute and deaf servants, chosen deliberately for this purpose, carried messages through every corridor of the palace. The concubines, in turn, formed an observation network among themselves. The conversations of grand viziers, ministers, and gate officials were reflected in reports originating from the harem. At that time, Pargali Ibrahim Pasha was Suleiman's closest friend, his longest-serving grand vizier, and the second most powerful figure in the palace. Some historians argue that Hurrem played an active role in Ibrahim Pasha's downfall. There is no direct document to prove this, but this much is true. Ibrahim Pasha and Hurrem represented two directly competing centers of power within the palace. Hurrem waged a fierce struggle to clear the path to the throne for her own sons. Prince Mustafa was the son born to Suleiman by his first consort, Hurrem Sultan. He was enormously popular within the army. According to many historians, he was the strongest candidate for the throne. In 1553, he was executed on his father's orders. The dismissal of Grand Vizier Ibrahim Pasha and the subsequent execution of Crown Prince Mustafa are widely attributed to the alliance Hurrem formed with her daughter Ibrahim Sultan and her son-in-law Rustam Pasha. But consider this: had Mustafa ascended the throne, what would have become of Hurrem's children, and of Hurrem herself? Fratricide had been enshrined in Ottoman tradition as a legal institution. For Hurrem, this represented an existential threat. Was it a mother's instinct to protect her children, or a calculated bid for personal power? Most likely both. And that does not make her a bad person, nor a good one. It makes her a survivor. And that truth is far more unsettling than any tearful scene in any drama. This period marked the beginning of what Ottoman history calls the Sultanate of Women. But Hurrem was not only there to tear things down, she was also there to build. Mimar Sinan, the greatest name in Ottoman architecture, built for her while she was still alive. The Haseki Kuliyesi was the embodiment of her conscience, rendered in stone. The place of women in society was being redefined by her hand. Education, healthcare, faith. Hurrem left her mark across every domain, but time proved stronger even than the greatest of sultans. Hurrem Sultan's health began to falter under the weight of the years. April of 1558 carried a scent of grief over Istanbul, and when that great heart beat for the last time, history stood still. So how would history remember her? To the Western world, she was the enchanting and dangerous Roxelana. To the East, she was an ambitious woman who shook the foundations of the state's order. Perhaps she was both a devastating storm and a life-giving sun. The letters she wrote to Suleiman are counted among the most lyrical works in world literature. Hurrem had 5 children by Suleiman. One of them, Prince Selim, ascended the throne, ensuring that Hurrem's legacy would endure. As Selim's mother, Hurrem determined the legitimate line of the Ottoman dynasty. Hurrem Sultan was not born a slave. She was made one. The difference is vast, and she reclaimed that difference with every day she lived, with every decision she made. She was a woman who fought to survive within the impossibilities of her age, and in doing so transformed an empire. History is written by the winners, but sometimes to find out who the winner really was, you have to dig much deeper